Okay, so we have to talk about this bill the House Republicans have introduced called the Fair Tax Act. This bill, if passed, would repeal all federal taxes, including income tax, payroll tax, gift tax, any tax on corporate income, and all capital gains tax. And it would replace them with a national sales tax of 30%. Now, Republicans will say it's only 23%, but according to the Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy, it's actually 30% because of how sales tax is calculated. Republicans are giving us a percentage based on the gross price, but we don't pay sales tax on the gross price, we pay on the original price. So they have reversed engineered the percentage to make it sound better, but it's not. To be clear, under this bill, if you buy something for $100, it will now cost you $130. And that doesn't include state tax, which would be on top of the 30%. The Fair Tax Act is a consumption tax. So you're taxed anytime you consume any goods or services. You buy a gallon of milk, you go to a restaurant, you see a movie, a plumber comes to your house, your child needs new shoes. Under this proposed bill, you would be paying an extra 30% for every single one of those things right across the board. Republicans ran on fixing inflation and rising costs, but they've now proposed a bill that would make every single thing in your life 30% more expensive. You'd think if your plan was to completely change our tax system and how the entire country is funded, you would have mentioned that when you were running for office. Because I'm not seeing how any of this fixes gas prices or deals with the border. And it doesn't take a huge mental leap to see the overnight impact of a 30% tax hike on certain markets. Housing market. Yikes. New and used car market. Collapsed. Retail clothing. Underwater. Travel. No thank you. Small business. See you later. I mean, a good part of this country is already living paycheck to paycheck. How are they expected to start paying 30% more for absolutely everything? We have to remember that our current tax system is progressive, meaning it takes an increasing percentage of our income depending on how much money we make. A national sales tax would be 30% for everyone on everything every time, except we all don't have the same amount of money. So this proposal would drastically change the lives of a lot of people in America. In fact, when this idea was independently analyzed in 2011, the results were that most income groups would end up paying more with a consumption tax than they do in our current system, except for the top 5% of earners, who, shocker, would see a major tax cut. Now, the Republicans have said if you're incredibly poor or if you're living below the poverty line, you can apply monthly for a rebate on taxes paid. So not only will you have less money, you'll have more work. And the taxes you used to do once a year, you now get to do 12 times a year. So it's just a great idea. And what about people who are sick? I mean, our healthcare and prescription drug prices are already extraordinarily expensive. Are they planning to carve out exceptions for things like healthcare costs, or are we going to pay an extra 30% for medical on top of everything? What about deductions, tax credits, tax exempt status? What about your retirement savings or charitable giving? Do those exist anymore? Do we still have things we can write off if there's no income or corporate tax? What happens to charitable giving if no one actually gets a tax break for giving it? What about states like Oregon that don't have sales tax? Now they just do? And isn't Social Security funded by payroll tax? How do we keep Social Security if we aren't paying into it anymore? Oh yeah, we don't. Republicans are trying to sell us on this being a great deal for the American people. They're just simplifying the tax code. We won't have to file tax returns. You get to keep every single cent of your hard-earned money. Yeah, you get to keep every single cent of your money, except anything you need to spend your money on now costs 30 to 40% more. This is what the Koch brothers and their pals have dreamed of. This is what they've spent the past 50 years working on. Not just to reverse civil rights and women's rights, but workers' rights and the laws that force them to treat us with a modicum of respect. If we allow it, we're looking at an unstoppable rise of a new aristocracy, a new feudal system, modern-day robber barons looking down on us from their castles while we toil in their factories and struggle on their land. College is already increasingly out of reach. Housing is increasingly out of reach. Retirement is on the chopping block. Public education is constantly undermined. They want us to learn what they tell us to learn, and teach what they tell us to teach, and behave the way they tell us to behave. And it's a lot easier to control us if we are poor and stupid. This idea is so goddamn ludicrous, so self-serving, so unbelievably believable from this group of Republicans that it should galvanize and unify us. Not just Democrats, but independents and Republicans. These people are not going to stop unless we stop them. We have to make sure this House is the last vestige of power this group of people ever has. We must look at their proposal for the country and reject it. We, the people, say no thank you.